Okay, we are now recording. So it's 1:05, so we'll go ahead and get started. And so we'll send this recording in an email after this meeting. To introduce myself, I'm Mercedes McHugh. I'm a senior at CSU. I'll be graduating T-minus 23 days or something. I don't remember. But anyway, super excited to be here in front of y'all, connecting from out here by Lyman, Colorado. So traditionally, we did mock interviews every year at CSU during state CDEs. So that's usually the Sunday of state CDEs. And this year's a little different. So thanks so much for being flexible. We are all here in the same boat as each of you, or in similar boats, I guess, just with connecting over the internet. So what a cool opportunity to do this together. So today we'll just do kind of a quick roadmap, me, myself, and I. We are going to start with Mr. O's speech. He usually does a 45-minute to an hour speech. I'm just kidding, not that long, maybe. And so I'll hand it over to him in a couple seconds. And then we will go through a panel with the current state officers. And that is the purpose, just to for them to talk about what this year of service looks like. And that'll be facilitated by my good friend, Michaela Fenton, who's also one of the great organizers for this mock interview. And then we'll have an overview of how the whole mock interview process will work this year. We're kind of breaking it up into a few weeks, and that'll be done by Cheyenne Hope, another good one of my friends. And so she is also organizing this whole thing. And then after that, we'll kind of have a Q&A. So that way, if you have questions, you can throw it up on the chat here at the bottom of this Zoom platform, or and that might help. That way we can kind of call on you, or if you have if you're on your computer, there's like this little reaction thing that you can push on, and you can like do like a little hand clap or whatever. Yeah, there we go. Cheyenne's doing it right now. That way we can know that you have a question, and if that doesn't work, then you can just unmute yourself and ask your question. So again, thanks for being here. We're so excited to embark on this journey with you. What an honor it is to be here in this meeting as a state officer candidate. So thanks for all joining. So I'm gonna hand it over to Mr. O. It's all you, dude.
Well, thank you, Mercedes. Appreciate it, and welcome everyone. I am Kenton Hochschner, the State FFA advisor. This is my 16th year doing this in this role, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. First of all, I want to congratulate you all for your willingness to take on a year of service to the FFA Association. The year will be an exciting one, as they always are. That will be challenging as well. My goal is to take the 10 students that are given to me and to do what I can to focus what our intent, our mission is for the year, and really to help everyone accomplish that mission for Colorado FFA. If you have questions, you can put them up on the chat on the side, or write them down, and at the end I will do my best to answer those questions. And you can simply unmute yourself at that point in time. This journey, and we'll talk about what this year might look like a little later on, but I'll talk to you currently what it normally looks like. In the next couple of days, you will all be receiving a tentative schedule of the year so that you kind of know what that looks like. I will make sure that I bold tentative. It's going to stay kind of crazy probably for a little while. So those dates are tentative and are subject to change from the time you get them till the time they're really finalized and you're elected. I believe there's 25 roughly officer candidates, which means that 1 in 3 of you, 2.5 of you will get elected. I want you to take this time between now and really the time that you have until the process, the real process happens, to really consider why you want to run for state office. What is your purpose? What is your goal? Are you doing this because someone said you'd be great at it? Are you doing it because someone expects you to do it? Why exactly are you doing this? My hope is that you're doing it because you really want to do it. You want to take a year out of your life to serve the members of Colorado FFA, not because someone expects you to, not because it's the next thing on your list of goals to achieve, but because it's really what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. And that is to serve the association. People often ask me, well, what do you look for when you are looking for a state officer? I'm looking for someone who has a willingness to help, to work, initiative. People that aren't afraid to say, hey, I can do that. Can I do it? People who aren't afraid necessarily to ask questions, to challenge. We want to constantly improve Colorado FFA, and we can't do that remaining the same way we've always been. Our association is growing at phenomenal speeds in membership, in chapters, number of chapters and programs, and we have to figure out how do we serve all of the different types of students that we have. Are you willing to? Are you willing to look beyond your personal thoughts and opinions, your values, and look at what's valuable for Colorado FFA and the members of the association? Because being a state officer is your personal values are important. However, we have to look broader than your personal values. We have to look broader than your home chapter values. We have to look at what's in the best interest of the entire state. And that's every member in every chapter, no matter how active they are. So again, I really want you to take this time to look at why are you doing this, and to really spend some quality time considering that. You know, after 16 years, I've had a number of issues arise. I've had issues where state officers have gotten through half the year and have decided that this isn't for them. And I've had to ask them to resign. We've had state officers that have not living up to the code of ethics of a state officer, and we've had to remove them. We have put on convention with 9 officers. We've put on convention with 5 officers. I don't have a problem doing that. I want 10 people who are willing to dedicate their lives to this association. And if you're not one of those 10, or you're not one of those people that have that attitude, please do not waste anyone's time and just gracefully bow out. This is a year of service. And in that year is a lot of hard work and dedication to the organization. From getting up early in the morning and scooping crap, to staying up late at night, having team meetings, or getting whatever needs to be done. And if that means you're only having 4 or 5 hours of sleep, that's what that means. And the next day you still have to be your best and be like you've had 12 hours of sleep. It's not easy, and it's not something to take lightly. This is a big deal and a big step in your future. I tell state officer candidates during the convention every year that as you move forward, this is not a judgment on how successful you are or will be. This is merely the judgment of 9 individuals who serve on nominating committee and who do their best during that time to select the 10 people they think will make the best state officers. If you're not elected, that doesn't mean that you're not successful. This has nothing to do with how well you'll do in your life. It only means that at the moment, this wasn't what you were meant to be. And I need you to understand that. I need you to take this serious. I take it serious. I've done it for 16 years. And I challenge and push state officers all the time to do better, to grow. I will push you out of your comfort zone to get the most out of you. Some other things that I usually talk about at this point in time is relationships. Some of you perhaps are in some type of a relationship. It is imperative that, and you can talk to current state officers, past state officers, But it's imperative that if you're in a relationship, that you have a conversation with that person. Let them know what you're about to go into. The last thing I would want for you is for that person, for me, to have to tell you it's time to make a choice between the FFA and that person. I don't want to have to do that, but I will if necessary. So that person needs to understand what you're going into. If that means you need to be single for that year of service, maybe that's what that means. Many officers have tried to have relationships during their year, and many officers have failed with that relationship. The most important relationships in my mind that you should have during your state officer visit or your state officer year are three: your faith, your family, and with FFA. And if you have those three relationships down solid, you will be successful as a state officer. This goal would be accomplished. As far as what this year may look like, we don't know. On May 1, the Colorado FFA Association Board of Directors will meet to determine how we're moving forward with convention. And we're not sure what that looks like. It is my hope that we do what we can for you as state officer candidates to provide you the best experience, the most fair experience that we can for this process. It's my hope that the nominating committee is in the same way, that they have the best experience they possibly can as they move forward in this process. What that looks like, I'm not sure at this point in time. Again, after May 1, we'll know. There's a high probability that you all, as state officer candidates, may be doing your interviews from the comfort of your home or somewhere else, but may not necessarily be face-to-face with the committee. I'm not sure. So I would encourage you to do the very best you can to prepare, and I think this is a great way to prepare, but to prepare for this next step of your life with as much information, knowledge, and experience as possible. Knowing that after you are elected, we will continue to train and develop you the skills necessary to become successful state officers. Again, I cannot tell you enough that as you prepare for this, make sure that this is really what you want. Make sure that this is something that you are after and not something that someone else wants you to do. If you have doubts, if you have questions, use this time between now and the actual process to verify what those doubts are, to make sure that this is what you want to do. I can tell you this from experience. This can be a great year and an amazing year. It can also be a very long year, especially if this isn't what you want. Or it can be a very short year. And then many times in cases those officers have had great experiences, it's one of the fastest, most exciting years of their life. But in those cases where the officers had some doubts, were not sure if this is really what they wanted to do, it kind of became a long year. How do you juggle your life? How do you juggle your family? How do you juggle perhaps your friends and your other relationships is very important as a state officer, because there's many times that your family will become your fellow state officer team. Your friends, your family become very close-knit. And in that group that we work with for 365 days. I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about what not only the summer brings, but what the next year brings as well. We have shown as an association, as the state officers, and as students all across our state, what it means to be relentless. And that's something that I'm very proud of our association. Our teachers have been relentless through this experience. The students have been relentless. Continue working hard towards that. Continue to keep in mind why you're here, what you want to do. Don't do this because someone expects you to. Make sure you have those conversations with those folks that you have relationships with or in a relationship, boyfriends and girlfriends. Make sure that they understand because I think the last thing you want me to do is really get in the middle of your relationship. And I'm not afraid to do that. I wish you all the best of luck. Again, you will be receiving an email from me this week pertaining to a lot of information of how do you prepare, what does a tentative schedule for the year look like, and it is a tentative schedule. The busiest time of the state officer year, well, it's all year long. So don't think that you can have all this extra spare time as a state officer. This is not a year off of college. This is a year out of college in a different educational setting. I plan to provide that educational setting for you each and every day, a way that you can learn and grow and to become a better person. That is the goal of becoming a state officer, is that at the end of the year, when you retire, you're a much better person than you were when you began. With that, if there's any questions, I'll feel free to answer those questions. You can throw them up on the group chat on the side, or simply unmute yourself and ask your question. A couple other things that people ask me about, or that I typically talk about, is reimbursements. Your expenses will be covered. That is for food, lodging potentially, in most of the cases when you're on official FFA business. We reimburse mileage, 28 cents a mile, and that may not seem like very much, and you need to probably do the math of what it costs to drive your vehicle. How many miles per gallon does your vehicle get? What's the current price of gas? And the current price of gas is pretty cheap right now, but is likely not going to stay that way. So I would say you do some calculations of what it costs you, even just in gas, to drive your vehicle. And that will tell you kind of what it costs you. Subtract that from 28 cents. And that would be what you would kind of expect to kind of make, if you will. Our job as an association is to be as fiscally responsible as possible, to spend the least amount of money. This money comes from you, the members, our chapters, our programs, and it is in our best interest to make sure we spend it wisely. So it's not about, having steak dinners every night. It's not about making sure you have your Starbucks coffee every day, because those are things that you would probably do whether you were a state officer or not. So sometimes having that coffee may not go on your expense report, but your mileage sure will, and your meals sure will. But if you're just having a coffee once or twice, or Red Bull, or whatever the case may be, keep in mind that this is student dollars that comes from the members. Are there any questions at this time? Well, either I scared the crap out of everybody.
So, I know a few of them have gone in contact with me. Would you be able to brush up with them about college courses a little bit?
College courses?
Your opinion on online courses or something?
Sure. Great question. Thank you for sharing that, Dominic. Yeah, college courses. Obviously, to actually attend a college is pretty difficult, if not impossible. To take online courses, I've had some state officers that have taken online courses during their year of service. I won't discourage it, but I would say that you need to make sure that that is something that you can manage, because you have to make a choice. It's either college or this. And if you can manage taking a couple courses online, given this crazy schedule that you'll have, great. If it becomes an issue, just like a relationship, if that becomes an issue for you to do your job as a state officer, then you will have to make a choice between being a state officer and being a college student. I won't discourage it, but you have to be the right kind of person to do that. It takes a special type of student to be able to take online classes because they're much more difficult than normal college classes, and be a state officer. But that is up to you. I know the life of a state officer, and I would say in the last 16 years, so 10 a year, 160 officers, I can count less than 5 that have taken online classes, probably less than 3 that have taken online classes during their year of service. It's challenging. And those that have done okay. But usually when you have too many irons in the fire, one of those irons is going to get pretty cool. And I hope that it's not the FFA iron, because when that happens, you're just letting down not only yourself, the association, but the 15 other state officer candidates who would want to be in your position and who are willing to serve in your position. So take that very seriously as you move forward. Other questions? Got one on the side that says, can you show livestock at state fair as an officer? You can show livestock still as a state officer. I encourage you to visit with me once you're elected, to make sure that what you're doing does not interfere. We've had officers that have shown at state fair. We've had a few that have shown at stock shows still, and that is okay, as long as it doesn't interfere with all of your other duties. Taking a day or two off of your duties to take care of your livestock at a show is one thing. Taking several days off to not only take care of yours but help many other people, that's something entirely different. But still maintaining your duties and your roles. This year, I'm trying to think, there were several officers that this year or last year that showed at state fair, and it worked really well from the standpoint that they went and took care of their animals. They came back and did their duties at the fair, and went back and forth during that time frame that they had their animal there. So yes, you can. It's just more of a time management during that event. Good question. Thank you, Travis. Any other questions?
I just want you to know, Mr. O, that you made me more nervous this year than I was last year. So way to go.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Retweet that.
Will we find out before the college school year that we are elected? I hope so. That's my intent. Again, I will know a lot more after May 1 as to how we're moving along with convention. But my goal would be that state officer candidates, the process will have occurred before college starts this year. That's one thing that I guess from my personal perspective is, I know that there's 25 of you that are trying to make decisions for your future, and will need to know about this process. There's 10 of them that will be retiring at some point in time, that need to move on with their lives as well. So I understand that and I respect that. Question, I'm now in college for convention. Where would I stay if my advisor does not provide lodging during convention week? For that question, I would say let's wait and see what we do, how we move forward. Again, I would say that depending on what comes out of the governor's office in the next week or so, we'll know a lot more. And it could be that we can get together and have a semi-normal convention, or it could be that we have to have a modified convention, and in which case there's no way that, we could probably bring 10 state officers, 10 people on non-com, 25 of you. It depends on how large of a group we're able to have at a site. So again, as we progress and as we move forward with this decision on May 1st, that'll be some information that I'll be sure that once we have that figured out, that I will share with all of you state officer candidates as to the plan for the nominating committee process. Other questions? don't be shy. Now's the time to ask me questions. If you can't think of anything right now, and that's understandable. In the email that I send you, I will be my email will be there, so feel free to shoot me an email with that. Have another one showing market swine at my county fair. Will I be able to get time off? Well, that's assuming you're having a county fair. No, just kidding. But county fairs are kind of in jeopardy right now. Not sure what they're going to do. But yes, we will do what we can. Again, that tentative schedule will lay out some dates for you. We try to stay off that county fair time as much as possible. And we'll move forward with that. Things this summer for trainings this summer could look a lot different than what they typically do. It could be that they're virtual trainings that we have instead of the in-person trainings that come from National FFA. They're still working on those details as well. So a lot of questions yet to be answered. Yes, CSU Pueblo, for those of you who haven't heard or have seen the Facebook post, CSU Pueblo's campus is closed through June 30th. So we will not have a live convention at CSUP prior to July 1. Again, it really all comes down to what happens through the governor's announcement here in the next week or so as to how we will proceed. If the state says opens to 50 or 100 people, interviews will happen in person, but the convention may be virtual. That's a tough question, one that I don't know that I can answer at this point in time. Again, we'll see what the governor says and kind of move forward from there. You guys will be, I won't say you will be the first to know, but you'll be some of the first ones to know because that highly affects this process. My point would be that I want to make sure that this process happens as normally as possible. I value the process, the normal process of nominating committee, and I believe it does a pretty good job. Give or take a state president here and there, you know. Just
wow.
kidding.
Roasted.
I believe it does a great job of selecting 10 officers to serve this organization. With that said, I'm not sure what it's going to look like. And I don't know if anybody knows what that'll look like, but there's a couple options. Either we do the entire process normally, how it normally is, and it could be at a different time. It could be at the same time. I'm not sure. It could be that the process, state officer candidates, you are virtual interviews and the nominating committee would be together. That'd be my second choice. And my third and not favorite choice would be that nominating committee is virtual and you are all virtual. What that means for convention, we don't know. Again, the board of directors will make that determination on May 1st after the governor's announcement. Other questions? What I would recommend is that no matter what happens, you all prepare as you would normally, as much as possible. Now, that means that this mock interview virtually is great. I haven't heard from the NJC crew to know what their plan is. They typically provide a mock interview. There's some other mock interviews around the state typically, and I'm not sure what the schedule is on those. A lot of times, some past state officers are involved, ag teachers are involved, and that information is spread out among officer candidates and teachers pretty readily. So keep your ears to the grindstone, prepare to the best of your knowledge. What you will be evaluated on, no matter how we do the process, what you'll be evaluated on is the same, period. If you haven't already, go to Colorado FFA students and their state officer candidates, and there's a handbook that's there that talks about what the process looks like and feels like in a normal situation. And that is what we will continue to do, no matter if it's virtual or face-to-face. That's how you will be evaluated, and that will be a very similar process no matter what. I was more referring to the state president a couple of years ago that had a weird name of Gus Gill, I think, Ashlyn, rather than you, but you know.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. Sorry,
I
Gus.
was wondering if that's where the shade was directed, but I wasn't going to say anything.
Well, you know. If there's no other questions at this time, I thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this, to come on and talk. And again, if you have questions, shoot me an email. I know the state officers are willing to help. There's a lot of past state officers that are on this as well that are willing to help and assist. And if they don't know the answer, they will forward it to me, and I'll provide that answer to the best of my ability. But know that there's a lot of questions out there. On convention, I would say don't worry about that. Focus on the process at hand and what you're willing to do. Keep in mind as to why are you doing this? For who are you doing it for? Are you doing it for mom and dad? Are you doing it for your ag teacher? Or are you doing it for yourself? And again, looking at those relationships that you're probably in and making sure you have those conversations of what does this year look like? You can ask former state officers all you want to about relationships, and I would encourage you to, and they will probably all tell you that it's not the easiest thing to have during a year of state officer. With that, Mercedes, I'll turn it back over to you for the weather.
Weather outside is actually really nice, really beautiful and sunny. Hey, thanks, Mr. O. As all of us can see, there's a reason why he's a state advisor. Thanks for your time and especially your talent of just laying things out there, especially the realities of a state officer year and especially all the obstacles that we're going to be embracing in the coming couple months. So thanks, O. Again, if you have any questions regarding anything that he talked about, you can reach out to any of us PSOs or any of the state officers or directly to Kenton. Sorry, Mr. Oshner. So yeah, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Michaela for the state officer panel.
Perfect. Am I on here? Technical difficulties. Okay. So a really neat part that we wanted to offer you all. So right after Mr. O gives his speech, usually the current state officers are there and they just kind of like are standing there and just offer like a tidbit of advice. But now that we are online and we have the opportunity to kind of spread out these interviews, we wanted to give everyone a chance to really talk about their experience as a state officer and really give you guys their perspective because they're the ones that are living it and breathing it right now. And through the rest of the mock interviews, you'll have time to hear from past state officers. So we wanted to give the current state officers a chance to talk to you all. So how we're going to run this is we're going to have to rely on you guys for lots of questions. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and read off the questions and kind of like moderate. And so basically I'll ask the question that gets put in the group chat. And then the current state officers are going to use their like little wave hand. And then they're going to go ahead and answer that question. But to get started, we ask them for a question to kind of think about. And so we'll let them run this however they want to do this. But the question I asked them to think about to really introduce who they are and then talk about where they're from and then answer this question. So the question is, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself as a candidate? So we can go ahead and get that started. Whichever one of you officers want to start first. And then we'll start taking questions right now in the chat and I'll just save them for whoever's ready.
Thank you so much, Michaela. You're the best. Michaela's the coolest if you guys don't already know. But yeah, so my name is Ashlyn, and I am currently serving as this year's state FFA president. And first of all, congratulations. And I think that this is on behalf of our entire team, even those that are working today. Congratulations for getting here. It's a really big deal to be a state officer candidate, and our hats are off to you, because this is a really awesome step to take in terms of your leadership and being willing to serve the Colorado FFA Association as well as the membership. So yeah, Michaela mentioned that they had asked us a question earlier this week based on knowing what we know now, what advice would we give you guys? And as I was thinking about this, I had several thoughts going through my head, but I think the most important thing that I have learned through this experience, and the most important thing that you guys can even start preparing for now, is the reason why you're doing this. And I know Mr. O mentioned it a little bit ago, but it is a really important thing to have a really solid why as to why you're running for state office and why you want to become a state officer and why you want to serve as a state officer. Because ultimately, the reason why you're doing it is the most important thing out there, and it has to be a really, really strong why, not only for when you run, but for when you're as a state officer as well. I'm sure most of you guys have already been preparing to run for state office and doing all that jazz, and you all know that it's difficult to prepare to run for state office, and it's difficult, and it's even more difficult when you become a state officer and when you get to really dive into that year of service. And there's going to be a number of challenges that you face, but if you can keep your why in mind as to why are you doing this and who you're doing this for, that's the most important thing. And I will give you a hint: it cannot be for yourself. That's not the right answer. And I think every state officer this year and every past state officer would tell you the same thing. So make sure you have a really solid why, and congratulations for being here.
All right, looks like I'll go next. I'm Dominic. I'm currently serving as this year's state FFA vice president. Ditto to Ashlyn about Michaela. Must be a VP kind of thing. I don't know. We're pretty cool, I guess, is what we like to say. One thing, I'm actually from Fowler, southeastern Colorado. Pretty cool place. If you guys don't know where that is, I'm sorry. One thing that I would tell myself while I was a candidate was to make connections with each other during your mock interviews, your interviews for state officer, things like that. Because you can prepare, and be on the team, but if you don't know anybody on the team when you go in, it's going to be a little rough starting off. So make sure you're making those connections. Play a game of Spicy in the middle of rounds. Dawson was pretty cool, taught us that game. Ruined a lot of friendships during that time, but that's pretty cool too. Just make those connections with each other, because if you don't, it's going to be really awkward going into trainings and talking about your feelings with each other and basically telling your life stories to each other. But yeah, ditto to Ashlyn again about the whole congratulations. We are super excited to see which 10 of you get on the team, and just know that we are all behind you every step of the way.
All right. Thanks, Dominic. I guess I'll go next. So my name is Dawson Rush, and I serve as the state secretary. I am from the beautiful small little town of McClave, Colorado, also down here in the southeast. Awesome place, very scenic, a lot of dirt, just beautiful. And, it took me a long time to come up with my answer to this question, I guess, as to what I would tell, myself as I was running for state office, knowing what I know now. But what I came to the conclusion of was, I would tell myself this: you're not running for a position or a title. You are applying for a job, and it is a full-time commitment, and it is work. And I think for a lot of people, when they look at state officers and they see state officers, they see all the fun stuff. They see chapter visits, and they see state convention, and they see national convention, and all these awesome and amazing experiences that you get to have as a state officer, and you do. And it's incredible. But they also don't see a lot of the not so glorious behind the scenes stuff that makes those special moments so possible, right? They don't see getting up at 5 a.m. to go shovel some crap at the state fairgrounds for 2 weeks straight, right? Like, and you're getting up at 5 in the morning after having stayed up until about 3 in the morning at as an officer team meeting about the rest of the year. And so, I mean, it is a job, and you all need to understand that, and understand what you're getting into is not just a fun experience, but it is a lot of work. But I don't want to discourage you, because it is a very, very, very fun job, and a very exciting job, and a very rewarding job. And so I congratulate all of you for applying, for putting yourself out there, and best of luck to you.
Thanks, Dawson. Definitely agree on everything you said. As for me, my name's Brandon Melnikoff. I'm from the Plateau Valley FFA chapter on the western slope. I always say west slope, best slope, and it annoys a lot of people, but we simply are the best slope. Knowing what I know now, here's what I would like to share with you guys. It's good to prepare as much as you can and use all the resources available to you to do that preparingness. But for me, I feel that there is also a time when you can over-prepare. And I think you need to find that balance within yourselves, and it varies from each person. But I caution you into not over-preparing, because I think that can take a lot of joy out of the process. And that's basically all I got.
I'll go next. My name's Stephanie Bushnell. I am serving as the state reporter, and I just want to say thanks to all my teammates for providing some really awesome feedback so far. And thanks to all of you candidates for taking time out of your day to be here, because it's a privilege to be able to talk to all of you. So I'm originally from the St. Marine Valley FFA chapter in Monmouth, which was pretty unique because it's 10 high schools all put together. So a lot of diversity in that chapter. I graduated high school in 2017, and then I did 2 years of college at Northeastern Junior College in Sterling before I ran for a state office. And I think no matter your background, or no matter if you're fresh out of high school or if you have a year or two of college under your belt, you have the potential to be a very successful state officer, and those experiences don't make you better than anybody else. So if I could share one thing with all of you that I wish I would have known sooner, it'd be that no matter what, you matter, and know that you have purpose, and regardless of the outcome, you matter. Know your role as a candidate and what strengths and weaknesses you have, and embrace those, because it makes you unique. And those strengths and weaknesses will help determine your place on next year's team if you get a state office, if that's the next chapter in your life, or if it's not, knowing those strengths and weaknesses will help put you ahead in whatever your next chapter might be. But regardless of what happens, just know you matter, and remind yourself of that throughout the process. Best of luck.
Yes, I'll go next. Thank you to the rest of the team for saying all of their good advice. And thank you to our top dogs, the past state officers, for getting all of this stuff together. And I will say, my piece of advice for all of you is to know that everything's going to be okay. No matter what happens, if it's all going to be okay, say that to yourselves, and not only will it make you more confident, but in case you do get it, good for you. In case you don't get it, another path just open for you. So I'd say just hold in your heart, everything's going to be okay.
My name is Brittany Fetzer, and I am serving as a executive committee member this year. I guess I'm from Paxton, I suppose. One piece of advice I'd have for you guys is don't sweat the small stuff, because in interviews, even if you mess up one question, don't let it affect the next question you get, or even the next round that you're going to the following day, because that impacts the rest of your run as a candidate, because you all have exceptional skills and talents that have wanted you to apply for state office at this point in time. And if you let the small stuff get to you, then you're not going to be the best you can be, and not allowing the non-com to see who you truly are and see the bright individuals that you are going to be.
I think that's all of you, right? Yeah, I think. Okay, perfect. There are a few others, but they had jobs or something important to do today, so that's great. We're super thankful that all of you guys had the chance to jump on and just kind of share those initial thoughts. So Candidates, keep your questions coming, but I do have a few to get us started. So this one comes from Caleb Wirtz. What is the most challenging thing of the year? And he wants to know that the things that maybe cool the herd. I don't know what that means. I'm not into the saying things, but there's your guys' questions. What is the most challenging things? And you have to be real, I think, is what he's saying there. Who's going to take it? Sorry, I can't see. Okay, Ashlyn's got it.
I got to take myself off mute real fast. Hang on, everybody. I think one of the biggest challenges that every state officer, most state officer teams would tell you is that learning how to jive well as a group, and it doesn't have anything to do with the people that are on your team. It just has to do with the fact that you're around 9 other individuals a lot. And so basically when we got elected, we were pretty much together the entire time, right? So you have state fair and you have stock show and you have those weeks on end where you are just with the same 9 people. And so it's kind of difficult when you get thrown into that position to immediately go straight into performing well. And so one of the biggest challenges that I think I faced was trying to figure out how to jive well with everybody on the team, even when we were tired. And one of the ways that I think our team did a really good job about that was making sure that we thought about what mattered in life, right? And we thought about, hey, this person is awesome because of these things that they bring to the table. And maybe, maybe Brittany is way more organized than I am, but that doesn't need to be something that drives us apart. That needs to be something that we utilize her strengths for, and we utilize my strength of being a little bit more fly by the seat of your pants, that sort of thing. But that is probably the biggest thing in trying to get along with your teammates when you have so much time together. And so the biggest thing that I would say to combat that is by making sure that you connect with each of those teammates in some sort of way, and in different ways, because I have a different relationship with Alex than I do Steph. And each of those relationships are really important, and that's what's going to sustain you when you're spending those long hours together, and when you are, just spending so much time with 9 people. Please feel free to add to that, guys. Team, to you guys.
Okay. One huge challenge that I face waking up in the mornings. I'm not gonna lie. I am a night owl, and so when you're on the team, say State Fair, National Western Stock Show, if you are a night owl, make sure you let your team know that, because if you're not the best at working early mornings, you're probably not going to be doing the best that you can. And being on this team, you want to be 100% you. You want to do the best that you can. Another challenge that I faced was keeping my double stuffed Oreos away from Ashlyn Oshner. I'm sorry, but let's just say that she ate a whole package of double stuffed Oreos of mine, and I was depressed for the rest of the mock interview. So, yeah.
I think I saw Stephanie's little hand and Dawson's little hand. So it is Stephanie and then Dawson, unless you guys are good. And they answered it. And then Alex.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Michaela. Great advice so far. One thing that I want to talk about, and I'm not sure how many people can relate to this, but I think one challenge that I had to overcome the most this year was realizing and facing some of the things in my past, and realizing that those obstacles couldn't get in the way of my state officer year. I am the first person in my family to ever do FFA. And so for the first part of my year, it was really difficult for my family members to understand the level of commitment that FFA requires, and really understand, what it meant to me and what it meant to be a state officer. They didn't necessarily see it with the same perspective that some of my teammates' parents and family members did, which was really hard for me. But my teammates did become my family pretty quickly. And regardless of whatever challenges you are currently facing or faced in the past, whether it's family or other things going on, learn to have patience with people in your life. learn to communicate effectively with others, and learn to be kind to yourself and realize that this is a year of growth if you do get a state office. I would say that was probably my biggest challenge, was kind of overcoming those things and becoming who I am now.
All right, Dawson, it's all you.
Okie dokie, thank you. Well, Caleb, thank you for the question. Hope you're doing well, man. Been a long time since I've seen you. I guess for me, when you're talking about challenges during state officer year, it's going to depend a lot on the person. And I think that we've kind of covered that as we've gone through these answers so far from everybody is, it's like whatever you find challenging now is still probably going to be challenging for you if you're a state officer, whatever that is. Like if public speaking is just something that kind of stresses you out, it's still going to stress you out when you're a state officer, like that's, so it's one of those things that it's going to depend a lot just on the individual rather than there just being these things like, these are the challenges that you will face during state office. I can't feel like I can articulate what that's going to look like for you or anyone. But I guess one thing that I have found, at least for me personally this year, that I didn't expect was I'm a mama's boy. I'm a big time mama's boy. And you're away from home a lot. You're away from home a lot as a state officer. And, you're crashing on people's couches and you're driving a lot. You're on the road. You're traveling. And it's pretty easy to get a little homesick, just to start to miss that. And so, that can be something that you might deal with as a state officer, is just that being away from home a lot and just the amount of travel that we have to do. And there's a certain amount of risk that goes along with that travel. We've had 2 close calls this year with people on our team getting involved in traffic accidents, and so it's definitely something that's a little nerve-wracking as an officer to go through. But yeah, that would be it for me. Is just that distance from home and missing the people that you love.
Perfect. And I saw your hand too, Alex. So I'll let you answer this question. Be the last one to answer this question, then we'll move on to the next ones too.
Sounds good. Thank you, Michaela. One thing I will say for state officer stuff is that your character will change up quite a bit. You'll grow in a lot of ways, and with that growth comes a lot of challenges. Some of those challenges can be anything, whether that's being a home person, whether that's dealing with issues with other people, or it could be stuff about yourself. And you just have to have the resolve to keep going and
short and simple, Alex. I like it. Okay, our next question comes from, where'd it go? Okay, so it comes from Tyson, and he asked, what did you do to prepare for mock and state officer interviews? So like the practice interviews and the actual interviews. Okay, put your hands up and I can find you. Okay, Dawson, you're up first, and then we'll do Alex.
All right, so I'm going to be really short here because I didn't do a lot of preparing. If you want to ask what I did, I went to mocks, and I know that feels terrible to say because you guys have been deprived of so many mock interviews this year, with the COVID outbreak. But for me, that was, I went to mock interviews. I went to, I think 3 before state convention actual interviews. So for me, that was it. I just went to mocks.
I'll keep this simple as well. One thing that really helped me out in preparing for all of this was delving into your character. What personal stories helped you define who you are? And I actually got a good bit of advice from Michaela when I was running. So really figure out who your character is and all the details about yourself, and then figure out how that shaped who you are.
Perfect. I also saw Brandon, Brittany, and Stephanie's little hand thing. So let's start. We'll go in alphabetical order. Let's go Brandon.
I just had a answer to the last question, so we can just move on.
Oh, sorry. Brittany, did you have an answer to this one?
For me, I think Alex said, I got a lot of help from Michaela as well. But something that I really looked at was going to the competencies that are in the handbook and really looking through those and picking out stories or little things that you would bring up in a question or an interview that might pertain to that competency, and kind of understanding what they're going to be looking for in those interview rounds as well as just in general. And that kind of might help you brainstorm different ideas of those different aspects that you might want to bring up, strengths and weaknesses, and other different things you might not have remembered or have forgotten about that you had gone through. So it's kind of a little bit of what I did.
Okay, last but not least, Stephanie, what did you do to prepare for boat?
So I would say I was on the complete opposite end of Dawson in the fact that I definitely over-prepared. And I'm sure there's at least one or two of you that are pretty similar and are getting close to the over-prepared route. And I would caution you against that. Definitely prepare enough. I'm not saying don't prepare, but don't over-prepare, because it caused me a lot of undue stress. I mean, I had a whole binder full of facts and things I wanted to memorize, and I stayed up till 2 a.m. every night of interviews trying to study, and that strategy, it doesn't work. Just be you. Another thing that I tried to do, which was helpful at many times, was to reach out to past state officers. I think that's helped a lot, or even reaching out to us as current state officers. But also remember that you're unique and there's no one state officer. You have your own qualities that makes you an individual, and hold on to those things. I would say go ahead and start looking at current events in agriculture and in ag ed. I was an ag ed student at NJC, so that kind of helped me out, having refreshed those kind of things in my mind from the classes I was taking. But definitely think about some of the current events going on, because that'll help you in some of your rounds, but don't worry about memorizing facts. It's not the end of the world.
Okay, Ashlyn, I think I saw your hands. We'll have you be the last thought here on this.
Perfect. I will make it short and sweet. So I have two pieces of advice. And the first one is prepare round by round. That's probably the easiest way to keep your information organized and your thoughts organized as well. So round by round. And the second piece of information or advice that I have for you is prepare to be a state officer. Don't prepare to run for state office. And you can interpret that as you may, but that was the best piece of advice that I got from a past state officer.
All right, Brandon, since I missed your little hand, can you tell us what is the most challenging thing for you as a state officer? And then we'll head into our next question.
So the biggest thing for me, the big struggle that I've had is learning to trust the process. You know, whether that be Mr. O's process and getting well, or just the process of the year, or even running for state office. Just trust it. This is how it's been for, at least 16 years, and it's worked. So just trust the process, and everything will be all right, like Alex says.
Perfect. Thank you, Brandon. Sorry I missed you on that one. Officers, if I'm missing you, just type I got one or something, just so I can make sure I don't miss you before we move on. Okay, so the next question comes from Sydney. She asked, what has been the most impactful moment serving as an officer? And then candidates, keep sending your questions. I only have one more in the queue. So we'll start with Dominic, and then we'll see who wants to take it from there. So most impactful moment. We'll go Dominic, then Dawson.
So my most impactful moment was actually when I first started chapter visits. I love to connect with members. That's the one thing that I really love to do throughout this year. And during chapter visits, I got to connect with so many members. That was probably my highlight of the year, just because I love to see different people in action. I love to get to know everybody, listen to their stories. If you're one of those people, chapter visits are going to be a blast for you, because you see all these cool people and you're like, wow, these guys are doing so much with their life. I can do so much as well. So just remember that if you're looking for connecting with members or anything, chapter visits are the way to go.
All right, we'll go Dawson and then Brittany.
So this is a really great, but really tough question to answer, because there's so many amazing moments that happen as a state officer. I can certainly relate to Dominic in the fact that overall chapter visits have been my favorite part of the year. I mean, just getting to like hang out, do workshops, hopefully impart a little bit of wisdom. That's awesome, building those relationships. But one moment that will probably stick out to me for the rest of my entire life was we were at a fundraiser in Denver at the National Western Grounds for the Colorado FFA Foundation called Meet and Greet. And we were doing a live auction. They were doing a paddle race. And I look over, and here's this little girl, and she couldn't have been more than 10, I thought. And she was holding up a bidder number. She's holding up a bidder number just like every other adult in the crowd that night, because she wanted to donate $100 to the FFA. And I had a mic with me that was hooked up to the entire sound system. And I was like, I got to go interview this little girl. Like, we've got to find out what's going on over here. So I walked over to her, and I bent down. I was like, what's your name? And she's like, my name's Mesa. And she's like the cutest little girl you've ever seen. And I gave her the mic, and I said, can you say that for me? I said, what's your name? She says, Mesa. And I said, Mesa. Said, how old are you? And she said, I'm 7. And then I gave her the mic one more time, and I said, Mesa, do you want to wear this jacket someday? And I pointed at my FFA jacket, and she just like she's like holds the mic up, and she goes, yes. And like the whole place just like erupts into cheers. I was about to cry because it was such a happy moment. And so, that's one of those once in a lifetime experiences that you only get as a state officer. And it's just something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Awesome. Thank you, Dawson. I think Brittany had one more response to this question, and then I have 2 more questions after that. So we'll get a move.
So for me, me and Steph were chapter visit partners and loved every minute with her, but something that really impacted me was traveling by myself after she got hurt. It was really sad to not have her with me, but I learned a lot through that and had to experience what it was like to be traveling on my own, doing things on my own. I really relied on getting to see my teammates in other aspects, whether it was over calls or just hearing their voices while I was on long car rides. So I really got to lean on my teammates a lot while I was through that experience, as well as getting to see other members across the state with Steph and without her as well, and got to fill her in as much as possible when she wasn't on the road with me and made sure that she was still a part of it as much as possible. So I think really just being able to see those impacts that me and her made together, as well as how I learned to adapt without her too, was really, really cool, and being able to lean on your teammates. So that's something you guys get to look forward to, is the amount of times that you'll lean on your teammates is pretty incredible for sure, for any aspect of the process or as teammates in the next 365 days after you're elected.
That's awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing that. So we have about a little less than 10 minutes, and we have 2 questions. So the next question is from Mariah. She asked, how have you grown during this experience? And actually, we'll just ask the 2 questions together. So kind of like a big picture thing, and we can all, like, maybe each of you guys can respond to this question, is what made you want to become a state officer, and then how did you grow? So that's kind of like a 2-in-1. And what made you desire to become a state officer comes from Tyson. So let's have all of you guys do your last statements and answer those 2 questions, and then we'll move on to the next part of today's little orientation. So whoever wants to go first, sorry.
I guess I'll go first. For me, I wanted to be a state officer because I had the opportunity that Whitney Mount and Tyranny Wilson stayed at my house when I was a junior in high school, and just the impact they made on my life and how they really wanted to invest in me in the 12 hours they were at my house for the chapter visit. And it was just really incredible to me how even after that experience, they wanted to keep in contact with me. And the best part is that I got elected into Whitney's position afterwards. When I came running off the stage, she was standing there crying because I was elected to her position. It was a really cool moment for me, and something that I wanted to continue as a state officer. I wanted to be able to leave that impact on other members, because I was a shy high schooler that didn't have a whole lot of friends because I wasn't cool or didn't fit in quite right. And they showed me that I had a part in their lives, and it was really incredible to me. And so that was one thing I wanted to continue as a state officer, and that's kind of what impacted me to become a state officer. And I've grown because I've learned to be more independent through different experiences, and also learned to voice my opinion a little bit more. At the beginning of the year, I did not say a whole lot, especially in sessions. I was really, really quiet, but I learned to grow and get to voice my opinion and make sure that I'm heard and understood. And I think that's something I've learned a lot throughout this year, and learning to rely on teammates too for other things. So not taking everything on myself too.
Thanks, Brittany. Which one of you wants to go next for this final answer?
I will go next if nobody else has a huge desire to. But I think the reason that I wanted to become a state officer, there were several experiences that I'd had with past state officers and national officers and that sort of thing that I was like, wow, this is really cool. But I think I figured out during high school that I wanted to be a state officer when I faced several rejections in high school and several setbacks in high school that had a pretty big impact on me, a pretty big negative impact on me. And it was one of those things where FFA gave me an opportunity to realize later. And just because there were issues that I faced in high school that didn't define me. And I realized about partway through high school that I needed to serve a bigger purpose and serve something that was larger than myself, and share my story with other individuals in some sort of service as well. So like making sure that other students knew that if they faced rejections and setbacks in high school, they weren't alone. And serving in that capacity by sharing my story was really important. And so that's kind of the reason that I became a state officer, or decided to run for state office. And secondly, I would say growth is like the biggest thing that this happened this year for me, that you will grow in ways that you won't even imagine. I mean, honestly, my heart grew like 10,000 times by, these 9 other individuals. Like I genuinely afraid after your friends, everything. And so it's for me is growth and leadership. I really struggled with the end of the year and how to work with people and
I can. And so I decided to run for state FA office to give back to the members and allow them to grow as much, if not more than what I did. I know I didn't have too many friends. I didn't have a whole lot of close people, but once I became a state officer with 9 other people, they became a family. They allowed me to grow a whole lot more, and it gave me a whole lot of support, especially through some rough stuff. So having them around me really helped me grow. So I'd say that would be my answer.
I guess I will go next. So final remarks. I just want to say great job and congratulations for wanting to run and everything. On behalf of the team, I know we are truly excited to see each and every one of you run and pour your heart out into these 9 nominated committee members. To answer the question, mine's actually linked together. So I actually wanted to run for a state office because I wanted to grow as a human being. From junior year to senior year, I was kind of in I was not really myself my junior year. It was kind of like SATs, AP classes, honors classes thrown at me, and I was just not feeling me. And then the transition into senior year, I saw myself growing a lot more with not only my character, but just my leadership skills and everything. And that's why I wanted to run for a state office, is because I wanted to show my growth as well as I wanted to help other people grow in their ways as well. I would probably not be where I am today without the FFA, and that's one huge place that I grew into was agriculture and FFA. I wasn't really raised in an agriculture background, and so being able to grow in more agricultural lifestyles too, that's been a huge benefit for me.
Perfect. Who's left from your group?
I'll go next. So this is kind of a question because a couple different reasons why I ran. Like my teammates, I was equally impacted by FFA. It really changed my life, and like Brittany, I had some past state officers that really changed my life as well. I would say one of the most defining moments when I decided I wanted to run for a state office was when Sam Bailey and Gus Gill was doing my chapter visit my senior year of high school. And we sat down for dinner before our chapter meeting and just had a conversation about life, kind of told them my life story. And I remember they looked at me and they said, well, wow, you have a story that you should share with people. And I never really considered that. I've always been kind of a quiet person who keeps that kind of stuff to myself. But then I started considering, okay, maybe state office is for me. I had some circumstances and things going on that I decided that I didn't know myself well enough yet at the end of my senior year to be able to serve Colorado FFA in that way. So I decided to go on to college. I went ahead and I did nominating committee after my first year of college to kind of get a little feel for the process, and that was really handy for me. And then by the end of my sophomore year of college, I decided I was finally ready and I had my mind right and I knew who I was and how I could best serve, so I decided to run. So I would say really my reasoning for running was being able to share myself and my story with others to help other people out, and also to give back to the organization that really shaped me as a person. And how I've grown this year is just being able to step out of my comfort zone and be able to really share those stories with others, with members who maybe are going through the same or similar things, and be able to hear stories from members and just leave that impact where we can. It's so surprising. You can leave an impact anytime, anywhere, whether you're a state officer or not. And a couple things I'll leave you with is first, you don't have to have a huge story or something tragic that's happened in life to a successful state officer. If you're willing to put in the work, put in the service, make an impact, you'll do just fine. And lastly, if state office is your biggest goal in life, if that's the one thing that you're after and nothing else, you need to get some bigger goals. State office is 1 year out of your life. It's an incredible year. But there are other things out there, and there are opportunities for you to make an impact whether you're a state officer or not, and you'll continue to make those impacts after your state officer year. So great job, guys. Thanks for all being here, and thanks for letting us talk to you.
Perfect. I think we have Dawson and Brandon left, if I'm keeping tabs correctly.
Yes, I think that is correct. So I guess I'll go and then we'll finish up with the great Brandino. So for me, there was two reasons that I wanted to run for state office. The first was that I felt like a real sense of duty to the FFA because it had done so much for me, and it had been a place in high school where I had been able to excel and grow and become the person that I was. And I just felt like I had to give back somehow, some way, and that, you know, it had developed me into a person that could be a leader at the state level, and I owed it to the FFA to become that leader. And so that was one reason. But the other reason was when I was a junior in high school, the year before I ran, I served on the state nominating committee and had the opportunity to interview, I think we had 21 candidates that year, including this absolutely insane girl named Michaela. I mean, she was a nut. I mean, just like more energy than any human being you've ever seen in your entire life. I think she was real, right? And you go through that process, you know, and you see state officers from the other side. And when they get to run up on stage and you know that, you know, you were a part of that. And I was just like, man, I want to run up on stage someday now. Like, that's awesome. And I feel like I have a chance to give back and a chance to serve. So that for me is why I decided to run. As for how I've grown, I guess what I have discovered throughout the course of this year is that at times following is the greatest form of leadership. And what I mean by that is when you pull together a state officer team, you've got 10 of the most driven, typically you got some alpha dog personalities, competitive people who are all trying to find some way to work together towards a common goal. And you learn to realize that it's not about who gets credit, it's about getting it done and accomplishing the mission and moving the association forward. And I think that that's something that we've all discovered as we've gone through this year and that we've gotten significantly better at. But, you know, for the team that comes in next year, if you guys can make that connection sooner, you know, that connection of, you know, we're here to get it done and we're here to lead when we need to lead and follow when we need to follow. I mean, great things can happen. And I guess my final thought is, you know, you're all awesome, amazing, authentic individuals, and you have your own talents and abilities, and just lean into those, lean into what makes you unique and what's going to make you an integral part of a state officer team. You know, you weren't made cookie cutter, and don't try and portray yourself that way.
Dawson, last but not least, Brandon, you're up.
So I'll keep my answer short and simple here. So the biggest reason that I ran for state office was because growing up in high school, the FFA really gave me a place where I felt like I was really at home. And so I ran for state office just because I wanted to open that door up and allow more and more people into that home, more than there already was. As for how I've grown this year, I've really grown into an adult, I felt like. You know, I came out of high school as this goofy teenager, and this year's really helped me grow into an adult. And now I'm able to do expense reports. Hadn't all year until this last month. I finally had the first right one. So there you go, Mr. O. And then, you know, my biggest piece of advice is that the best state officers are the officers that are the most proud of who they are, and stay true to that. So that's all I got.
Idea. Thank you guys so much. I think if I were a candidate again, this would have been so helpful. And I'm apologize. We should have planned like hours, because this can go on forever, because everyone's just filled with such good advice. And there's probably so many questions that each of you candidates have. So to honor everybody who had extra questions, because we couldn't get to all of them, Cheyenne is about to begin the overview of what the CSU mock is going to look like for the next month or so. So while she's doing that, if you have more questions, we'll have the state officers kind of keep an eye on the group chat, if that's okay, and they can help answer any questions on there as well while Cheyenne continues to go over the next part. And so Cheyenne, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen while Cheyenne kind of presents here.
Sweet.
Technology is crazy. There we go.
Yes, there you go. Beautiful. Sweet. So I'm just going to take a quick little bit, being mindful of people's times. I first want to take an opportunity to thank some of the people who were able to jump onto our call today. We had Kyle Hartshorn, Gus Gill, Heather Levy, and then Mr. O, of course. A couple of them had to leave. They had prior commitments, but we just want to thank them for their time and thank them for being invested in you and taking this time on a Sunday afternoon. As I say that, if there are any people still left who would be willing to be a resource for candidates, feel free to type your contact information into the chat box if you are so comfortable. Otherwise, let's go over the schedule really quickly. You don't have to write any of this down. We're going to send it in an email with all the links, so don't feel like you have to catch everything in this moment, and this will be recorded, so all good. So as you can see, here we are, Sunday, April 9th, we made almost there. Third, we're going to do a stand and deliver, and so what's going to happen is we're going to send a link following this meeting. We'll send it in an email, and it'll be a link to sign up for different times. It'll be about a 10-minute-ish interview. We will give you a topic 30 minutes prior. We'll probably give it to you beforehand, so it's kind of the honor code on when you look on that, but you'll have that 30 minutes to prepare. You'll check into the waiting room, and we'll let you in. The volunteers will have a scorecard, and then you'll get all of those results at the end of the process. So we'll do that on May 3rd. On May 17th, we're going to do business and industry. Same thing, Google sign up. by appointment. And then May 31st, it'll be a personal round. So there'll be a panel of people. Don't worry about logistics. We got that covered. We will send you all the available links and all of the resources you need, as well as instructions. Everybody got on today, I think, so that's great. So, let's see. 25, so I'm going to spend about 5 minutes on if you have any questions about what that process looks like. And then otherwise, we'll let you guys get going. So I open the floor to any questions about logistic processes of what mock interviews will look like. Feel free to send them afterwards too. And you don't have to use the chat. You can also video up if you'd like. If that's easier for you. But yeah, we're doing signups on Sign Up Genius, so you don't have to have a Google account or anything. Yeah. Just take a couple pauses so everybody can get what they need in. I hope everyone's doing well and are managing online classes if you have them. I know I sure am riding the struggle bus a little bit, but we're making it. Ashton had a question about what is the best way to prepare for Stand and Deliver. We'll give you all the resources. I would just say general ag resources. If you look at those competencies on the Colorado FFA website, it'll go through like the different competencies of what to meet. I would say definitely focus on your ag knowledge competency for sure. And then otherwise, it's just a general speech. Maybe Google like good interview tips via online things. But we'll give you the prompt and kind of how that'll work as we get closer to a couple weeks from now. Thank you, Ashlyn, for throwing your question in there, and other Ashlyn for throwing your contact information there. So if there are no other questions, yeah, Mercedes, so for those of you who don't have the chat function, Mercedes said that Michaela and Mercedes' information are in the emails. Definitely reach out to us as well. So advice, words of wisdom, as well as questions about the actual process. If there are no further questions, I open the floor. If you need to leave, go do whatever you need to do. I'm going to be respectful of your time. So this is your exit ticket to peace out if you need. Otherwise, feel free to stay on, chat, ask any questions if you so need. If you missed anything, this is recorded and will be sent out with the logistics. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate the state officers' time and all of our guests' time. And then we'll have a bunch of volunteers later on during the interview process that will help us out. So thank you, candidates, so much for being here. And then Mercedes, Michaela, any last words?
Don't quit school. I promise. I want to. I'm there with you, but we're going to get through it all together. Each of us are so proud of you for being here. I know at least a good chunk of you, and I'm so excited to see how each of you, all of you that I don't know yet, grow and go through this process and grow alongside us. Good to see y'all.
Yeah, to the seniors out there, I know this is probably a very difficult time, but we hope that this kind of can be like a little light in your life right now, knowing that the future is coming, even as long and drawn out that this spring can kind of feel right now. But we're all like rooting for you guys and here to help with whatever. To the other college students, we're right there with you, working hard. And then to the state officers, thank you all for being here and just providing your heart and your experience. And then past state officers, thanks for joining in, especially today, because you didn't have to. And we are so excited for you to help and just spread your wisdom to these new candidates. And Cheyenne and Mercedes, love you both and thank you.
Shout out for Colorado FFA again for letting us use their Zoom link. So appreciate that.
Thanks, Don Thorne. Woo-hoo.
Thanks, guys. You're the best.
Yes, thank you all. This was definitely beneficial for all of us.
Hey, Cheyenne.
What?
I'm full of random questions, but did you paint that picture that's behind your head there?
I did. I painted. There's 2 of them actually.
Oh, whoa.
So this is like, I'm a PSO, so I can say that now, but that's one of those wine and sip things. And then that one was via quarantine boredom. So
Diane and I
Oh.
actually did that first photo together.
Yeah, Mercedes had
I-
like the same one. My mountains are prettier, but her sky's nicer.
I
So.
called BS on that one.
So yes, not a very good painter, but that's my Zoom back.